Pushing this pawn on g6 and trying to promote it is not as easy as you think. It's very tricky, and I want you to pause the video and try to figure out the right move here for white to actually win the game. Alright, now, the right move and the first starting move is to push the pawn. Any kind of check is not going to be helpful. Their king can, going to be able to escape, and then the rook will always be able to stop the pawn. Therefore, the first starting move, it is g7, trying to promote. Now, obviously, this move we cannot promote right after because the rook still protects. But after this move, black has to make a move. So now either black moves their king, right, or they move their rook on g4. So one of these two things. If they play, for example, king h4, they're trying to get a little bit smart and play king h5 and get to the pawn. Here, the king and the rook are on the same rank. So we can play this move, rook to b4, pinning their rook, sacrificing our rook, but then whenever they take us, which they actually have to because we're going to promote on the next move. So they take, we take, we promote, and this is a winning endgame for white. We just have to figure out a way to get a fork with the queen, with a check, and winning their rook and getting the king closer. Alright, what if they don't play king h4? What if, for example, they played king g3 and they're trying to escape the other way to get to our pawn? Because if they manage to land the king on f6, that's a draw 100%. So we need to stop them from accessing the f4 square and the f5 square, and the f6 square as well. So how can we do that? Well, we do that by restricting the king's movement. We play rook to f7, and they cannot access this file anymore, and they cannot really move. Like, for example, let's say they went king h4 with their king. We just do the exact same thing, king h4, and we pin their rook, and they have to take us. We promote and win. Alright, and if they played king h3, then here we have a cool move. We have this move, rook to f3 check. They either block with the rook, and then we just capture the rook and promote and win, or they move their king, and we get to the same position where we pin their rook first, and then we promote and win. So, they cannot play king h3, they cannot play king to h4, because of the same thing that might happen to them. So, you might say, well, they can just move their rook, like, for example, rook g5. Now, rook g5 is good, but it misses a really cool move for white. We give up the protection of the pawn on g7, and in return, we get counterplay. Like with this move, rook to f1, we're trying to give a check, and then we're trying to exchange the rooks. And they can never take us because we have a check, the king moves, we win the rook, and that's a winning endgame. So, after this move, rook to f1, what can they do? Well, obviously they have to do something with their pieces, and most likely their rook. They play rook h5 check. Now we have to move the king. And you might say, well, now our trick doesn't work because they covered, now we are covering the g1 square, so they can go back and take our pawn. And we don't have rook g1 check to win the rook. Yes, you're right, but now we are forcing black to make a bad move. And we have to go rook to f7. And now we are, sorry, not rook f7. Now rook f7. Rook to f2. And the idea behind rook f2 is the same thing that we are threatening. We're threatening rook g2 check, and we're trying to win the rook. Or, exchange rooks and then promote. So after this move, rook to f2, it doesn't matter where they go with the rook, we're going to play a check and take the rook and then promote. So here they have to move their king. So they play king h3, which is the best move, giving us a check. Now here there is only one move that is winning, and that is to play king h1. The reason king h1, because we need the h2 square for our rook to land there, to give a check, to force black to move their king on the same file as their rook, and then we take the rook. So that's why king h1 is the best move. Here it doesn't really matter what they do. If they move their king here, we play a check and we take the rook. If they play the king here, we play a check, then another check, and then we take the rook. So the best move for black here is just to take the pawn, play a check. Their king moves, we play another check, and if the king moves away, we take this rook, and this is a winning endgame. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching.